This is Brindlewood Bay Tourist Season Part 4. Let's do some character recapping, and then I'll go over the mystery that we're doing, and we'll be good to go. So, a couple of things. What conditions do you have? And if you recently took an advancement, I'd like to know what you chose for your advancement. If it was a move, I want to know what move it is. If it was an ability, like what ability did you increase, that kind of thing. Let's start with Alicia and Esther.
So my conditions are Bloodhound and Bruised Knee. And I did take a new move. I took the Milton Hardcastle as my advancement on Adrian's advice because of the way Esther was leaning.
I like it. And for people who maybe don't know Brindlewood Bay who are watching the video, basically Milton Hardcastle gives you an extra end of session question, which is always considered in play, which is, did you inflict extrajudicial punishment on a wrongdoer? And extrajudicial punishment can be, there's a wide range of possibilities there. It could be like something very mild, or it could be something really severe. It's up to you. But fabulous. Thank you. Dan, how's Ruth doing?
Ruth has been better, but she has the conditions of scared and brave face and no advancements this time.
Fantastic, thank you. And Ida?
Ida has the conditions of unnerved and a sore neck after being choked by a ghost a little bit. And she did get an advancement last time. I chose to increase an ability modifier, and I bumped her sensitivity up to 0 from -1 because I feel like that she's made a little bit of a connection last episode.
Probably a good move in this campaign in particular to have a higher sensitivity. Adrian, Laura.
So Laura did not take an advancement this time, but she has 3 conditions. The black dog is still plaguing her that she's seeing around. We'll see what happens with that. The clouded past, so she's still unsure what happened in her past and how these things are stirring again. And she's also unnerved.
I should mention, though, that you do have the Colt Seavers move now, which I think is interesting because that's the one that gives you once per session a 12+ on a roll related to a wild or daring physical feat. So see how that comes into play. Fantastic. So the mystery we were doing is The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soulless. It's complexity 7. You have 10 clues, which I think we decided last time we were going straight into Theorize, but let's just review the clues really quickly. Letitia, the victim, drank poisoned pomegranate juice before she died. Percy Underwood, our sort of dog's body at the B&B, has a ticket for the next bus out of town. There was a charred guest book page, or several charred guest book pages maybe, in the brick-fired oven. There are secret rooms in Snowdrop House. We got to see that secret room. There was a set of land deeds hidden in a cave. Snowdrop House has a history of people disappearing. Deputy Anderson is doing some kind of shady side deal. We haven't seen much more of that, but we know it's a thing that's taking place. Percy Underwood is doing something late at night in the dirt. Ava Cole left an earring in the refrigerator, or an earring fell off in the refrigerator. In any case, one of her earrings was found in a refrigerator, and a mortar and pestle was found on the mantle that leads into the hidden room. We learned a lot of things about the broader story that may or may not have any connection at all to the actual resolution of this mystery, which is essentially that it seems like the midwives of the Fragrant Void, who you all don't know the name of yet, that it hasn't been revealed yet, but the cult, they apparently use Snowdrop House as their like meeting place, and in particular the secret room in Snowdrop House. And it seems like Phoenix Cole and Mrs. Carfax are both members of the cult, along with Etienne Beauregard. And so those are some interesting details. We do have some void clues on the table. I think it says we have 3. I could have swore we found one more, but maybe not. But in any case, we have 3 void clues. You've learned a lot about the history of Brindlewood Bay and the connection to the sort of sort of occult past of it, as well as stuff going on with the cult in the modern day. So that's sort of where we're at right now with everything. Does anyone have anything to add or any questions? With that said, shall we just dive right into Theorize? Is that the plan? Get this mystery solved, for which you have quite a lot of clues. If you can work all of them in or explain them, otherwise explain them away, you'll have a +3 on the roll, which is very good. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the very end of our last session, we did our seance where we summoned a ghost, and I thought that Laura might have talked to the ghost and learned something there, but I can't remember what that was.
The ghost like told her something at the door, apparently, when she went to answer the door, and basically Lara Sanchez told all of you that Sheriff Dalrymple killed Georgie Mapplethorpe,
right,
and then blamed it on the commune back in 1967. Now, this may have no connection whatsoever to the current mystery, but it might. Who knows? It's up to you. So.
Okay, cool.
So who has a theory they want to propose?
So I don't have a complete theory, but I feel like maybe the best way to do this is to start like with who could have done it, right? So like my proposal is that Percy could obviously have done this, right? With like, he would have had access to the earring to frame Ava. He's got something going on with Deputy Anderson. He's leaving town. So there's a lot of things that point to Percy.
That's a good detail about him having a thing with Deputy Anderson. I implied that it was like a romantic thing, but it absolutely could be something else, right? It was very vague, so.
Right. I mean, it could be both very easily.
I also am leaning towards Percy, but I also think that Percy doesn't necessarily seem like he has the like wherewithal to have planned this, and so he might be like a little bit of he might be being manipulated by someone else, so we might be able to bring some of the clues in.
Yes, maybe he had help or something.
Yeah,
maybe
I
from
like
the old
idea.
lady.
I definitely agree with the idea that Percy's no criminal mastermind here, but that he very well could be the tool of one.
I think the criminal master, and she's so, she.
Adrian, you're breaking up just a little bit. Say that again. I feel like we're getting something really good from Adrian.
Well, she is so.
Adrian, we missed every bit of that. So say that again.
I was just saying that Mrs. Koufax, she might be the one that helps because she's so innocent looking, and so I guess for me it makes sense that she would be kind of the criminal mastermind behind all of it.
Well, and Laura in particular, you know her to be the apparent head of the cult, right? Or at least a bigwig in the cult, which, there may be a connection to the cult or there may not, but just kind of keeping that open.
She also seemed pretty eager for us to figure out the Ouija board thing. Like she got in when I was doing it and was like showing us how to do it. So there's something suspicious there.
So maybe we should talk about Abraham Stockton too, because that dude's creepy. And we got land deeds, right? He was the previous owner of the hotel, and we got some like weird land deeds going on.
He expressed a anger about Ava Cole and Ava Cole's apparent like ruthless tactics in acquiring Snowdrop House, right? That wasn't a capital C clue, but it came up in a conversation.
Right, and he would almost certainly know about the secret rooms and all of that if he had previously owned it. So
I like the idea bringing in Miss Carfax based on how the cult was talking. But again, this was before she arrived. This was when it was just Etienne and was it
Phoenix?
Yeah, you're right. It was Phoenix Cole. when they were talking, they seemed, at least at the time, we were given no reason to doubt what they said, that they didn't have anything to do with this murder. But I like the idea that Miss Carfax might sort of have plays on both sides. Like she might be involved with the cult and even be fairly important in it, but like that doesn't mean she doesn't have her own other adjacent interests potentially. Doing actions behind the cult's back, so to speak. I don't know. I think there's some interesting stuff there potentially. I don't know how Stockton factors in.
I was going to ask, what is everyone's like theory about Stockton? He's just an embittered old man, an embittered former owner, or is there more to it?
I think he's just an embittered, creepy old man. Like, I feel like we've all known these people in our lives, and you're like, I don't really want to spend time with that guy, but not necessarily like evil, not necessarily murderous.
He's definitely like the harbinger in our story, right? Like,
yeah,
right.
You know,
yeah, he's the creepy old man at the gas station. He's like, don't stay at the B&B.
I wonder if he even like knows of or even has ideas of the cult that exists. I like the idea that maybe he's not a part of it, and maybe he is. I don't know. We'll see how things go. But that he like just knows things about it, knows about this town's history enough to see the signs, but like also doesn't really like feel compelled himself to do anything to stop it. Just sort of an observer. I don't know.
Well, so it sounds like we're kind of leaning towards Mrs. Carfax possibly having another agenda that would want her to murder Letitia Dawes for some reason. I feel like that's really the key, right? Like, why Letitia, right? And used Percy to sort of get the job done. If everyone kind of agrees with that basic sort of premise, I think we can start marking off clues to see like how it all fits in. The first clue is fairly straightforward. Letitia drank poisoned pomegranate juice. That's how the deed was done. This also, I don't know if you all observed this or not, but pomegranates are a really big deal in the Persephone myth, right? And the cult is dedicated to Persephone. So there's a really strong connection there, right? With like Mrs. Carfax and stuff. Now, your characters don't know all those connections necessarily, but it's something we know, and I think that's interesting. But I feel like that one's easily explained. The next bus out of town, probably because Percy did it. And he needs to get out of there. So that feels good. What about okay.
Sorry, real quick about that. Like, I think it's reasonable that Percy didn't even necessarily do it. All he really needed to do was put the earring in the refrigerator, right? That's all he really needed to do to frame Ava.
To frame Ava Cole. Oh,
right.
So, I mean, that changes the theory a little bit. Like, does everyone want to pin it squarely on Mrs. Carfax?
It could also be in a similar vein that he did it without knowing that he did it. So he would have served Letitia, right? So if Mrs. Carfax was the one who actually did the poisoning, and then he
exactly
for the drink.
So Percy is a patsy then, basically, right?
Yeah. If we believe Percy when he said that he wasn't really even sure how it got in the refrigerator, and he just saw it there and was like, well, she asked for pomegranate juice and then brought it out.
Yeah.
Then Miss Carfax could have been the one to plant it there originally.
And she lives there, so she could have done it easily, right?
Yeah.
Adrian, do you have any thoughts about this? Are you good with all that? Oh, you're muted, but okay.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah,
okay, awesome.
That's great.
Why then would Percy be getting out of town? What would the bus ticket be about if he didn't know his role in it?
I think
that could just be payment. Like, he got paid by Mrs. Carfax and he wanted to leave anyway, right? So this is like, put a little pocket money for like putting this earring in the refrigerator, and he can go live his dreams and whatever. I don't know what his dreams were.
And making sure the police found the earring too, because remember, Percy was the one who was like, "Oh, look," like,
right.
Yeah, it feels like Miss Carfax trying to misdirect to Percy as well, right? So now she's made him look real suspicious.
Okay, I like that. And Percy expressed, like, it came up really briefly, but he expressed like a desire to like be an actor, right? Like he wants to be on the stage. So maybe this was like, you know, what he's leaving town for. So that's pretty good. Okay, this is the hard one to me. The charred guestbook pages. What does that mean?
Okay, I have a theory about this. I think that the charred guestbook pages are connected to why Letitia was here. I think that the information that she needed was in the charred guestbook pages, and Mrs. Carfax, with the connection to the cult, didn't want her to find them, so she burnt them.
So what was Letitia? I think we have to ask the question then. What was Letitia investigating? What was she here doing?
Well, there's a history of people disappearing from Snowdrop House. So, I mean, it could easily be that.
Oh, the guest pages are people who are no longer there, who like
Right.
went missing. Oh, that's interesting.
I have an offered connection then with Miss Carfax. Miss Carfax is quite old. She could have been coming here, like obviously she's been staying here long term more recently, but she could have been coming here all her life.
Well, no, according to Abraham, she lived at the farm too. She lived,
Yeah.
she like that continued. That was part of the deal with the Coles, right?
So then it could be that like with the charred guestbook pages, it was both a record then of the people who might have gone missing there, and also tying Miss Carfax to it, like if she was there at the time.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is they also mentioned that people went missing from the same bedroom. It was a guest bedroom when it was a farm, right? So I think that, yeah, it could be that Mrs. Carfax is just basically trying to cover up that. I suspect it's because the cult has a connection to it, but I don't think that really necessarily matters for the purpose of the mystery. Secret rooms, that feels pretty well sorted. I mean, it's kind of it's explained away at least by Mrs. Carfax knows things, and she clearly like is up to something, and she knows where all the bodies are hidden. So I think that's okay. What about the land deeds? This is something that seemed to be important to Abraham Stockton for starters, and it was in the cave, which is weird. I don't know what the connection is there.
Maybe it's a little too samey, but I feel like this is another Mrs. Carfax thing, right? So if she doesn't want anyone to know that she lived on the farm, that she's been here, that maybe like trying to tuck the deeds away, but without getting rid of them because maybe she needs them for some reason. So just like hide them away where someone can't find them.
I think we can add more context there. Like maybe there's some missing context that we can add, like something in particular about the locations that were in the deeds. Adrian, do you have a thought?
Well, I was wondering whether in general it would also, we kind of explained why Percy wants to leave, but maybe we could connect a number of the other clues to basically a kind of side story that he discovered something that was going on, like some shady dealings. Maybe that could connect also, well, maybe Deputy Anderson's shady dealings or something like this, to something that Percy, maybe this is connected with the land deeds, and then maybe with Percy kind of finding out about this, which is something completely different from kind of the midwives, but still it makes him want to leave.
Oh, so
Picking
he
up on that.
found out something he's not supposed to know as well.
Picking up on Percy being involved, I wonder, because we have that like aggressive business guy, right, who's obviously like set out to like acquire this property or many
and
properties.
Yeah.
And so like potentially Percy has been tasked with trying to like hide some information. I feel like the land deeds could be connected to this, like if the Coles aggressively bought out the building, like maybe they're worried about someone else doing the same thing. And I feel like Percy could have a connection there.
What
too.
if Deputy Anderson's side hustle has to do with like helping with these like shady land deals? That could be it, right? Maybe pressuring people to sell or something, you know?
I was just thinking that these land deeds, if they date back far enough, could be the real land deeds behind lots of properties in Brindlewood Bay, and that the deal here could be Deputy Anderson working in conjunction with Miss Carfax, are using them to like blackmail or have leverage against those people. Like we could pull your properties right out from under you, but because we have the original deeds, but you know, you don't have to, so long as you accommodate us in these ways. And Anderson could be the face for that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do we think Damien Swallows is connected too then?
I would put Damien Swallow as the guy behind that part of it rather than Mrs. Carfax. And so maybe this is, you know, some ongoing tension between them.
Interesting. So yeah, that's interesting. So it feels like we have almost like there's like almost like a double cross or something going on here, or like Percy, it's basically like Percy caught in the middle of like a bad situation, right? Let's put a pin in the landings for now and keep going. History people disappearing, it sounds like we're saying Mrs. Carfax is trying to cover that up, so we'll just click that. We're going to put a pin in the Deputy Anderson thing. Any thoughts yet about Percy in the dirt?
Night gardening.
Right. Yeah. Was he literally just night gardening, or is there like something else going on?
Okay, so here's my weird one, is that Percy's just like getting paid by everyone. He was out looking for the land deeds for Damien Swallow. Like, Percy doesn't care. He's just getting as much money as he can stuff in his pockets before he splits.
Oh, I like it. He's helping Damien. That's pretty good. Okay. I think that squares away the land deeds and the garden then, if everybody's cool with that. We'll come back to Deputy Anderson in a minute. Ava Cole, that's just the earring. That's clearly like him being, we decided Mrs. Carfax paid Percy to do that. And then the mortar and pestle on the mantle. In the mantle that kind of leads into the hidden room. What was the meaning of that? Possibly where the poison was made.
Yeah, I think that's Miss Carfax's murder weapon right there.
Okay, cool.
That's where she made the poison that went in the pomegranate juice.
So then I think the last thing, so let's, before we get to this last clue with Deputy Anderson, I want to just like recap where we think things are. So Mrs. Carfax wants to murder Letitia because Letitia's getting close to figuring out the dark history that Mrs. Carfax and the cult have been involved in over the years. And so she makes a plan, executes the plan to murder Letitia, sort of uses Percy both inadvertently and or sort of like Percy's involved inadvertently and intentionally in different ways, but basically he inadvertently gives her the poison pomegranate juice and he intentionally tries to pin it on Ava Cole because Mrs. Carfax pays him to do that. Also, we've decided that Percy is being paid by Damien Swallows to find these land deeds. I think the connection that I'm looking for is, why does Percy feel the need to get out of town? It can be based off of either of these things, but I think it needs to be pretty strong. And what does Deputy Anderson have to do with it? Like, Deputy Anderson's shady side deal might be something that threatens Percy in some way. That's what I want to kind of figure out here.
So I think that Percy might actually, even though he's kind of a tool, literally and also more figuratively. I think maybe he knows more than he's letting on, right? We don't know how long he's worked at Snowdrop House, I don't think, but like, he's there, he does everything, he sees everything. And so I have a feeling that he knows or has some inkling of what's going on. And, so he's been taking this money, he's been doing these things, and now he's like, I gotta go before Mrs. Carfax sets her sights on me or such. I think that he knows it's bad and he needs to run. I think he's protecting himself and so
he's helping Damien strictly to get paid then. So
yes,
he has money to like start his new life. Okay, I love that. But what's Deputy Anderson's deal then, Dan, or anybody?
Well, so Deputy Anderson and Percy have a relationship. So if Anderson is working with Damien Swallow, that's how Percy would have gotten tied in with.
That's how he got tied
Damien
into this scheme. Got it. Okay,
yeah.
That's perfect. So Deputy Anderson is working with Damien. All right, I love it. If no objections, I think we're good to go on this. It is Mrs. Carfax essentially did it, right? I mean, that's ultimately for the mystery purposes. That's what it boils down to. For the murder purposes, there's all kinds of other stuff, but it's not really Maven's business right now. Who wants to do the roll? +3. It's a good roll.
I've got dice.
Go for it.
Somebody else. All right. Okay. No whammies. Ooh, that is pretty good. That's a 6 and a 2. That's 8 + 3 is 11.
Nice. This gets resolved, no problem. I think what I want to do is we're not gonna do a scene with die rolling or anything. I just want to do like a kind of round robin narrating the conclusion of the mystery, where basically we just get like a little bit of the scene leading up to Mrs. Carfax being arrested. So let's kind of start building that scene out.
I can't recall whether or not you can upgrade a Theorize roll with a putting on a crown.
I decided you all can by putting on if you all put on a crown, this is the way the Between does it. If you all put on a crown, you can upgrade it to a 12 plus. I don't know if you really need to, because the only thing
We've learned a lot.
you've learned a lot. Yeah. So like you already know a lot about the conspiracy, so it may not be necessary, but don't let me stop you. But so let's just begin like a kind of, I'll kind of set the scene. The scene is, it is the next day. It's the next morning. Breakfast is being served. Percy is getting his suitcases and getting them ready to book it as soon as breakfast is done. And all the other suspects are in the parlor as we've kind of seen them previously, and you all are there as well. Whoever wants to begin the sort of like, just kind of get the scene flowing, go ahead and get it started.
I think Ida is playing a game of checkers with Miss Carfax.
Nice, good. I will say that Sheriff Dalrymple shows up at a certain point as well.
So Ruth is in the corner with Laura, and she is explaining like the entire conspiracy to Laura, like whispering. Like obviously, if anyone wanted to overhear them, they probably could. But
I love it. What's Laura doing, Adrian?
I think Laura is she's sitting again in the back. I mean, there's still this kind of unresolved issue of she pretending to be part of the police force and so on. So I think she's again in the back, kind of trying not to get noticed. That was her role here mostly, but she is sitting with her back to the wall and kind of still having a look at the window, you know, because now it's daytime, but still this black dog is still something she's nervous about.
Of all the characters, Laura's probably the most traumatized right now, right? Like I mean, the most like horrible stuff has happened to Laura. What about Esther?
So Esther, I think at this exact moment is like filled with rage. Like Letitia was murdered in front of her. Ida was put in danger by Mrs. Carfax. At least that's what Esther thinks. And Sheriff Dalrymple is a fucking monster. So there's like two people in the room, and I think that Esther really wants to punch someone, but she hasn't decided who yet. I kind of want to wait and see how the scene plays out.
So then let's just kind of like, what is the moment when like Mrs. Carfax is arrested? What does that look like? Like, how do we lead up to that point, Ruth? Like, how does this begin?
So I think it's like Ida makes a killer checkers move and like locks down the game, right? And then that's when
I don't think I've ever made a king against you.
I love it.
Like as she says that, that's like the signal. Because I think Ida's been like holding back against Miss Carfax all these years. She wants to have a pleasant game of checkers with her friend, and
but
this
now
time
she actually beat her. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this time she actually beats her and is like, oh, it's funny, Miss Carfax. It seems maybe you've lost your edge.
That's good.
And then, you know, the constabulary close in.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. Sheriff Dalrymple, you know, kind of says, you know, you're under arrest, and takes her.
I would like to interrupt Sheriff Dalrymple, if that's okay.
Sure, go for it. What do you do?
I would, as he starts talking, I would like to say, Sheriff Dalrymple, I think that you should call Deputy Anderson.
Oh, interesting. He says, sure, certainly, Esther, if we can handle it, though.
Yeah, I think you're going to want to call him.
He'll get Deputy Anderson over there. Deputy Anderson wasn't too far away. And then what?
And then I'm going to say, because I don't think you're going to be able to do your job. And then I'm going to punch the sheriff in the face.
Nice, good. And Sheriff Dalrymple knows why he's getting punched. And so he's not even going to like file charges against you. He'll just take that. And because he knows that you know what he did, right? Or he at least knows that you know about the bones in the cubby. So Mrs. Carfax is being led away, and she looks back at all of you and she says, "If you think this is the last you've seen of me, you are very, very wrong. I have plans for this world that you can't even begin to comprehend. And this minor legal kerfuffle is not going to stop me." And they take her away. And so concludes the long dark tea time of the soulless. Ida, did you have something to add?
Just, with the state of our legal system, I believe her.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's still like a scene when people are kind of leaving the place and so on, where we could get some of the mavens together, and also, yeah, I think something with the dog still has to happen here. I think maybe not that it doesn't appear, but I think I see definitely Laura kind of standing there and looking out into the land around and kind of seeing whether she can spot it, and maybe being comforted by the others where she's telling that they can tell that she's nervous.
I think I can pick up on that. I think basically as soon as, like, while they're putting her in the police vehicle, I think the black dog saunters up to her, and the deputies don't even stop the dog, and they let Mrs. Carfax like pet the dog, and she says, "Don't worry, dear. Our work here isn't done yet. This is but a minor inconvenience. You keep looking out for things. Keep keeping an eye on this place, and we'll be reunited soon enough." And then she lets the dog go. And so with that, we will wrap up the long dark tea time of the soulless. It is solved. Let's get back to cozy, as much as we're able to, with a round of cozy vignettes. Each of you narrate a scene showing your maven enjoying her life in Brindlewood Bay. If you have a shadow in the garden marked, be sure to add a subtly creepy component. And of course, this is our opening credits montage. Think about it for a minute. Whoever wants to go first, take it away.
So I'm not sure whether this might also be a chance for kind of a scene together with one of the other mavens as a cozy activity. But I think I think in the common room of the place we just left, there was because it was running quite some time, and there was a bowl or something with like old letters or old envelopes. And I think when we were leaving, Laura grabbed some of them because of the stamps, and she just put them in her pocket somehow. And so I think we see her in the afternoon of this this same day, kind of on the porch of her house. The sun is going down. She's sitting there. She's kind of separating these different envelopes and very slowly and carefully kind of taking off the stamps from the envelopes, using some steam and so on. And I think she looks out and she startles, and she was sure for a moment that there was this black shadow of a dog dressed right across the street. And we can see her tense up, but then after a moment, we see this nice dog that the neighbors have. It's like a brown puppy that is kind of strolling over to her, and she pets it, and slowly kind of the tension releases from her shoulders and everything.
Nice, thank you. Who wants to go next?
I can go next, if that's all right. I think Ida, after everything that's happened and staying the night at the bed and breakfast, I think she gets back to her home, which is I'm imagining like a small sort of 3-bedroom cottage. It's like it at this point is too much space for her, but she hasn't found the will to part with it. And when she arrives back, I think I'm actually going to lead with a little bit of the shadow in the garden. I think she like hears the sound of footprints in another room, or like a footsteps rather, and like sees a shadow under a door. But by the time she goes and like opens it up, there's no one there. And I think in order to like sort of calm her nerves after that, she's always found, and also like to see if there really like is signs that somebody was there. I think she like just starts cleaning her house to like calm her nerves. Like things haven't been dusted in a year or more, and there's whole rooms that she's just sort of left fallow. And so I think she just like goes through, and it's like a bit of a montage. Like for the first bit, you can see that she's still stressed and anxious from everything that's happened, and she's still like looking over her shoulders a little bit. But after like the first hour or two, she really gets like into it, and she's just she's got her hair pulled back, and she's just really going at it, and starts enjoying herself. There's like a certain pleasant quality to taking something that was off and making it right once again. And so she's like stands there satisfied at the end, sweating a little bit, got a towel draped over one of her shoulders, looking at her now clean house. And that's where her cozy vignette ends.
Awesome, I love it.
So I think that Esther, after every murder, she goes home and she scrapbooks about it. This is like her new reporting, right? Is keeping this like record of the investigations that the Mavens do. So the sort of like framed up kitchen table. There's some other scrapbooks out. I think if she's kind of like reminiscing. There's some photos of Letitia, I think, when they were young, and she's been looking at those, and she's just kind of like putting together the things for this mystery, and any little bits and bobs she had collected, receipts from their stay at the B&B, and she is like going through photos, and she picks up a photo, and it's a photo of her and Ida, and she kind of like pauses for a second, she's like looking down at it warmly, but as she's looking at it, their faces in the photo like warp into these like horrible, like skeletal visages before kind of like snapping back, and then she just kind of tucks it away.
Nice. Ruth?
So Ruth is in the park, and we see her like just sitting at a bench, and she has like all the crows around her flying through the air and coming down, and she has like a handful of peanuts, and a crow will come down and she'll hold out her hand, and it'll drop like a coin into her hand, and she'll give it a peanut. And the next one comes down, and it drops like a like pull tab from a Coke can in her hand, and she gives it a peanut. And the third one comes down and drops a human tooth into her hand, and that's just the end of the scene.
Love it. Our next mystery is the Great Brindlewood Bay Bake-off. Let's talk about the Great Brindlewood Bay Bake-off. Let me type it here first. The GBBBO. The mystery is complexity 7. And it starts, some time has passed between the events at Snowdrop House. The most popular television program in the world, the whole world, the Jolly Good Baking Show, has come to Brindlewood Bay to find the town's very best baker. A number of qualifying rounds have been held, and our murder mavens are among the bakers to make it through to the final televised portion of the show. So this is the portion where they actually film it, and the actual like celebrity, hosts and judges are there, right? You will meet the charming presenters and have your confections judged by the notoriously strict baking judges, Paul and Jane. Now, the very first scene depicts the opening round of the finals, which is pies. Everyone is going to say, what kind of pie is your maven making? And then you will ask, another player will decide whether your pie is a triumph or whether it's rather disappointing. And we'll go from there. And so whoever wants to say what pie they're making, go ahead and say so. Does anyone have baking as their cozy activity by chance? Anybody if you did, your pie is always triumphant. It's always a triumph. If you don't, you're at the mercy of the other players. So who wants to say what their pie is first? You're in the tent, everyone is like, there are 2 other competitors. There's 6 of you total. We'll talk about the other 2 competitors in a little bit. But yeah, who wants to say first?
Ruth is making a pecan pie.
A pecan pie. Let's go with Alicia. You get to decide whether Ruth's pecan pie is a triumph or rather disappointing.
Oh, that's so tough. I think that it's a triumph.
Very good.
It's the best pecan pie ever.
And now, as players, this is all as players, the rest of us get to say one detail about like what made the pecan pie such a triumph. And here that's me, Adrian, and David. Whoever wants to talk about the delicious.
I think Ruth
pie.
grows her own pecans.
Oh, very good. Nice. Okay, we like that. I think it's it avoids this sort of like southern truck stop pecan pie treacliness. It's more of a custard rather than like a thick, kind of thick, treacly, syrupy thing.
I think the form is just spectacular. It's basically like completely symmetrical, all the different parts. So the way that the pecans are laid in the cake, in the pie, and everything. So
Ruth, one of the judges, Paul Riviera, he's a big, stout guy, silver hair and goatee, piercing blue eyes. He takes a bite of your pecan pie. He pauses for a moment. And Jane, the other judge, says, well, don't keep her in suspense. And he says, I love it. And he puts his hand out to shake your hand, to giving you the coveted handshake, Ruth.
The Riviera handshake.
The Riviera
handshake. Highlight of my life.
He gives it to you, and yeah, and everyone's like, oh, very good. Ida, what kind of pie did you make?
I think she has made a sort of classic lemon chess pie. And she's done a dusting of powdered sugar on top in the pattern of a chessboard, because it's got like sort of a brown crackle on top, and it looks a little bit like a chessboard.
Or a checkers board.
Right? Or checkers board.
Yeah. you could call it that, a lemon checkers pie.
Yeah, lemon checkers pie. Love it.
Adrian, is the pie a triumph or rather disappointing?
sadly, I think it's rather disappointing.
No, not the checkers pie. Alicia and Dan, we get to decide what about the checkers pie, the lemon checkers pie, makes it rather disappointing.
Soggy bottom.
Soggy bottom. Yep, that is it. Can't have a soggy bottom.
I think that it looks amazing, but the flavor is lacking.
Very good. And I think Yeah, flavor, soggy bottom, that's all a problem, right? I think you just get judged unfairly because they can't figure out why you called it a checkers pie instead of a chess pie, because it's normally called chess pie. So there's just like some just outright like unfair like assessment of the pie based on what you decided to call it. One of the judges, Jane Leaf, she's this very, very elderly old woman, like Mrs. Carfax old, but very posh. She's wearing like a very like fancy, like kind of Art Deco, like colorful jacket, you know. And she says, "Don't fret, dear. Your pie looks very good. It's just that the taste is somewhat inadequate." And womp womp, that's it for the lemon checkers pie. Laura, what kind of pie did you make? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ida.
Ida will like take a defiant bite of it and then like chew it for a minute and be like, you know what, you're right.
Laura, what kind of pie did you make?
So I think Laura makes something kind of different. She makes like a Indian samosa pie, so kind of a savory recipe that she picked up when she was living in India for a while, when she was a vegetarian there. And it doesn't look like much from the outside, but it's really all these garden vegetables and everything. She might have actually asked Esther for some vegetables from the garden before to put them in there and that sort of thing.
I love it. Dan, is the pie a triumph or rather disappointing?
I think everybody was skeptical, but as soon as they take the first bite, it's amazing.
Very good, a triumph. David, Alicia, what are some details? How is this samosa pie a triumph?
The turmeric and the crust on the pie, because I'm imagining sort of like a filled pie experience here, made it really difficult to judge the bake, but you've nailed it. You know, it's not too dry, it's not overbaked, the crust is just right, that sort of thing.
Fantastic.
I think in classic, what are we calling it? Jolly Good baking competition, they just really love quote unquote exotic flavors.
Right, yeah.
So they're just like, oh, we've never tasted anything like that because our judges have bland white people palates.
Well, they're actually from Britain, so they actually probably would know curry pretty well, but I do like the idea that they're kind of like, ooh, spice, you know, like they do the thing where like, normally I don't like too much spice, but this is just right for me, right? They do that thing. And that's what I think that's what it is. Jane's like, Jane's like, I thought it was going to be too spicy and too flavorful, but it turns out it's just right. You've nailed it. And so it was a triumph. And that just leaves Esther, right? What kind of pie did you make?
Well, everyone said all the different kinds I want to make, so I'm going to go classic Canadian. Esther made a tourtière, which
you may have to explain that. What is a tourtière?
A tourtière is it's a meat pie, basically. It's a savory like pork meat pie that's really common mostly in Quebec here, but it's like a French Canadian delicacy. So it's a savory pie also, on the same page as Laura here, trying something different.
David, is it a triumph or is it rather disappointing?
It's too much power. I just so we get a balanced start for our mavens, I think that Esther's pie is also somewhat disappointing for reasons that the others can decide.
Dan, what was wrong with this pie?
The crust is just too thick.
Stodgy, right? That's
exactly.
Stodgy crust.
Didn't they say beforehand that it was a vegetarian entry that was supposed to be made?
So the fact that you put meat in it was a problem. Good. I'm going to say that I think it's another like bit of like unfair judging. Like they, apart from the fact that you didn't do the brief because you put meat in in the pie, which is a major problem. I think they also it's meant to highlight cuisines of the local area. This is clearly not that. Neither was Laura's pie, but they didn't judge Laura harshly. So your pie is not up to the mark for that reason. So the first
Canadian
round
is just not exotic enough.
Indeed. I think we see, let's meet the other two contestants. The other two contestants are Scott Lamb and Melanie Blair. Now, Scott Lamb, he is very organized, very fastidious. He's fond of bow ties. He was actually a contestant on the main British Jolly Good Baking show several seasons ago. He's actually not from Brindlewood Bay, but in a bit of stunt casting, they wanted to bring him back because he had like a famously like explosive relationship with Paul, like on camera. And so in a bit of stunt casting, they wanted to get Scott Lamb on this program. In order to justify him being here, they put him up in an apartment in Brindlewood Bay for like 3 months to say, so he could say he lives in Brindlewood Bay in order to get him on the show. And I think at some point, like while the pie making was going on, we'll see a scene where he's doing the blind baking, like putting the ceramic beads on the pie crust, to blind bake the crust. He's saying to the camera, it's very important to blind bake the pie crust so you don't have a soggy bottom, because believe you me, Paul likes a neat, firm, uncomplicated bottom. And he does that, puts the pie crust in, and then we cut away. The other contestant is Melanie Blair. She is the classic archetypical contestant where she's seemingly frazzled but actually quite intense. Like she gives the appearance of like but she's like a super cutthroat competitor. Very sensibly dressed. She has lived in Brindlewood Bay her whole life, and she learned to bake from her parents, who used to own the Sweet Sensations Bakery before it went out of business. And she's on camera and she says, yes, it's true. My parents' bakery went out of business when Paul's bakery chain opened a location in Brindlewood Bay, but I won't hold that against him. I just love the Jolly Good Baking show, and I'm just so honored to be here. There are also two presenters. The first is Sue Mellon. Sue Mellon is boisterous, punny. She's a hugger. She was a successful comedian in the UK, but then she took this presenter job when her comedy career started to flatline. At one point during the pie round, she said, "Bakers, let us be a warning to you. Only 5 minutes remaining in the pie round." And so that's what kind of person she is. And then the other presenter is Timothy Bush. He's weirdly large, kind of gothy, has very broad humor. He doesn't know anything about baking, and frankly, he's lucky to have this job. He announced time at one point. Bakers, you have 30 minutes remaining in this round, and then poured a glass of water over his head and did a cartwheel for some reason. So that's Timothy Bush. There are also a few very active sort of behind the scenes people. There's a producer, Heath Hendricks, and the principal cameraman, an American named Just Buck. Paul's wife, Donna Riviera, is also here on set with him. After the first round, there's a bit of break, and you'll come back for the sort of final round, which is a cake. You're gonna make a fat, spectacular cake. We'll talk about the cake in a minute. But on the break, while you're all sort of enjoying craft services or whatever they have laid out for the contestants, and several locals from the area have come to kind of like, because they kind of set up around the tent and like look inside the tent, right? They can't get too close though, and they certainly can't get to anywhere where the production is taking place. But there's a few people, there's a lot of people in town who sort of expressed an interest in this, and all this stuff is kind of going on. It's an exciting time in Brindlewood Bay. At a certain point, you hear a scream. And everyone can react to the scream. And what you find is Jane Leaf, the other judge, she is in Paul Riviera's trailer. Paul is dead. His hands have been tied behind his back with beautifully plaited nylon cords, and his face is dusted with flour, but he is dead on his knees. Jane came in just to have a chat with him and discovered his body. They are going to pause the production for a moment while they figure out what happened. Heath, the producer, is determined that they're going to do the final round, though, even if they have to do it without Paul. They're here. They don't have much time. They got to get that final round filmed. They'll figure out Paul's absence later. So the cake round is happening. But for now, there's a murder. We're going to take a 5-minute break. At some point, you will have to do your cake round. And the way the cake round will be done is you're each going to find a picture on the internet of the cake your maven baked. So find something fabulous, and I will judge who is the winner. So but let's take 5 for now. So they're going to take an extended break between round 1 and round 2, given one of the judges has turned up dead. So I think this is one of those situations where the police have not been called yet because production wants to kind of figure out how to like massage the situation, or at least get a story or something, like they want to control it, you know, as opposed to like having a big scandal like just break out in the middle of filming. And they know eventually they'll have to call the police, but for now they're content to sort of informally figure out what happened, right? And of course the murder mavens are all there conveniently enough, so it may be on the 4 of you to help figure out what happened to beloved baking judge Paul Riviera. And so I think it's the middle of the day. The adrenaline is pumping from both pie baking and murder. And I think we want to figure out where everybody's at right now, what's going on. Now, I've updated the mystery sheet with all the suspects. There were probably other people in and around the area. For our purposes, these are the principal suspects right now, but if you all come up with a theory that involves someone else, I'm definitely open to that. But it's Sue Mellon, our presenter, Timothy Bush, our other presenter, Jane Leaf, the other judge, producer Heath Hendricks, Paul's wife, Donna, the 2 contestants, Scott and Melanie, and then our local cameraman, Buck. So let's just go around the table. Ruth, what are you thinking about doing right
now? So I've pulled out my pocket recorder and I'm recording I think I've picked up podcasting since the last episode. So I am.
Is that your new cozy activity?
It might be.
It might be. I love it. So what are you doing exactly then?
So I'm just narrating. I'm setting the scene. I'm like, Paul Riviera was found in his dressing room. Obvious signs of foul play. We'll see how this develops. Everyone stay tuned after this ad from stamps.com.
I love it. What about you, Esther?
I feel like it's time for the return of Bo. I think that Bo has just been like kind of just offset because obviously you can't have dog hair in your baking food. But I feel like I would like to bring him in and maybe have him sniff around for things that are suspicious.
Okay, I like that. Laura, what about you?
I think Laura was mostly happy after a while of kind of quieting down to talk with some of these people that are not from around here. So I think she is interested in, and I think she likes kind of quirky people. So I think she she's looking around and seeing whether she can talk to Timothy Bush.
He has a trailer as well. So if you want to go to his trailer, you definitely can. And Ida, what about you?
I think Ida was already feeling like this whole competition was somewhat unsportsmanlike, with having a past competitor be ushered in as a resident of Brindlewood Bay. He doesn't even live here. And I think, given the explosive history between the two, I think seeing the murder, she is immediately suspicious of that fellow and would like to maybe get some time alone with him, see what he's been up to.
I love it. So let's go to let's start with Bo. So I think Heath is at the trailer, right, where Paul is dead, and he sees the dog and he says, Esther, I'm sorry, this is a closed set or closed murder scene. In any case, I don't think you can have a dog in there. I'm pretty sure that's not, police procedure appropriate.
Well, lucky for you, Bo is actually a former police dog.
Oh, can he sniff out important details about who killed the star of our program and probably is going to cause this entire franchise to collapse?
Yes, that's what police dogs do.
He says, and at this point, he just kind of lets you go in to Paul's dressing room, where the body is still there on it. Paul's on his knees, his face covered in powder that's made to look like flour. If it's not exactly flour, who knows? Let's do meddling move with. Oh, interesting. Maybe this is presence because you're convincing Bo to go sniff it out,
Sure. Also, to be clear, Bo is not a police dog. That was a
Oh,
lie.
I know, yeah. yeah. I don't think Heath knows or cares at this point. He's more focused on the collapse of the brand.
Oh no.
What'd you get?
4.
4. Hold that thought. We'll come back to it. Laura, you can go to Timothy Bush's trailer. We have a paint the scene here. This is for everyone at the table. As Laura steps into the trailer, maybe you knock and go in or whatever. What do we see in Timothy's trailer that suggests he is a deeply lonely person?
I think on the bed, these kind of boyfriend pillows that kind of you can hug while you sleep.
Like anime character pillows.
Yeah. Like a big one.
Yeah.
You can hug when you sleep.
So I think there's books prominently displayed on his little tiny bookcase in his trailer, and there's a bunch of them that are clearly not read. They're in pristine condition, but the one that shows the most wear is microwave meals for one.
So sad. Okay.
I think springboarding off of that, I think that there's only a single chair at what constitutes his dining table there in the trailer.
I think that in some areas that he would stand a lot, like the mirror or maybe, places in the trailer that he would spend a lot of time, there are a bunch of little sticky note affirmations that say things like, "You're deserving of love."
Awesome. You step in, Laura, or he opens the door for you, and he says, and he's very weirdly big. He has to hunker down to look into the frame of the doorway to let you in, right? He says, "Oh, Laura, can I help you with something?"
Yes, I I wanted to talk to you. I mean, I thought it would be interesting to hear more about your experience, how you ended up on this show. And I think, well, now everything's kind of different, but I don't have anything, like there is this big break, and I'm not sure, do you have to be somewhere now? If not, I think maybe we could use a chat to kind of quiet our nerves.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. Come in, come in. It's terrible what happened to Paul. I mean, ugh,
It
who
is.
would want to do
I
such
think
a
Laura,
thing to him?
yeah, when she walks in, I think basically she thought she was fine after the last couple of days, but you can kind of see she's looking around, and she's still, like, just because there was this additional murder now, or tragedy, or in this case actually it looks very clearly like a murder, so she's kind of flinching again, and her unnerved state, and looking out, because this black dog is kind of coming back to her, all of this. So it's really, she closes the door quickly behind her, and then she sits down there.
I think I'm going to go ahead and give you the meddling move with presence, just to get him to open up, assuming that's what you're trying to do. I'm going to put you at disadvantage though, because we've described him as a gothy person, and I think he actually has a poster of a red-eyed black hound in the trailer. So just make with disadvantage.
That's a 4.
2 misses on the dice. We shall come back to those in a moment. Ida, you said you were chatting up Scott, right?
Yeah, that was what she was thinking.
So Scott's just there in the, I think the there's basically like a kind of break area where like the contestants can hang out or whatever, like whenever there's a break in the recording and the filming. And he is, I think you see him like adjusting his bow tie in the mirror, right? When you find him.
Could you remind me real quick on sort of the timing of the murder?
Yeah, it would have happened just like on the break between the pie round and the cake round. But then once they discover the body, the break is getting extended while they figure out what to do. So.
Okay. Oh, Scott, fancy meeting you here.
He's like, oh, hello.
Oh, it's a terrible thing that was just found out about Paul's, certainly, right?
Well, terrible, depending on your point of view, I suppose.
Oh, does your bad blood with him run that deep?
Well, I assume you're a fan of the show.
I've seen every episode, except there was one that I fell asleep to on season 2, but I haven't gone back to watch that one yet.
Well, then on my original season that we had a bit of a blow up, Paul and I.
They never show you all the details on camera. I just assumed that was just for show. Was there really something that really set you off?
Do a meddling move here with presence.
I do those often enough that you'd think I would have put more points into presence. Let's try. Ooh, that fell off the table. Let's try that again. I do not have enough space to roll here. There we go. And it's still off the table, but I'll just read it this time. That's a 1 and a 3. That's a 4, and I don't think I have any points to presence. If I do, it's only 1. So yeah, I do. I have 0. So that's a 4 for me.
All kinds of misses. That's 4s specifically. Wow, how interesting. Ruth, once you're done with we'll come back to it. Once you're done with your initial opening monologue here, what do you do then?
So I'm just looking for people to interview, because we need some perspective, like in the moment perspective from people around. So I think I'd look for Sue.
Okay.
She seems like she would have a good podcast presence.
I think so. Sue's in her trailer as well. She has her own trailer. And I paint the scene here for everyone. Sue clearly has a reverence for the great comedians that came before her. What do you see in her trailer that reinforces this idea?
Okay, so I think as soon as you walk in, there's like a poster of Jeff Foxworthy.
Wow. We said the great comedians that came before.
Oh yeah, she loves greats.
I think on the wall there are some framed signed photos of some comedians who I cannot name, but some, there's like maybe like 3 or 4 like signed photos.
I love it.
I think on like a man, not a mantle, so I doubt there's a fireplace here, but like on a shelf, there's a replica of the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch from Monty Python, and it's been signed by most of the original cast from the show.
Love it.
So I also was just about to go for Monty Python. So I think there is probably some LP by like a big LP cover on the wall with some British comedy from the 1950s or so.
I love it. So Sue says, Ruth, baby Ruth, what can I do for you?
Well, I'm just kind of wandering around. I don't know. We're on break, and I just thought I would, just get, people's reactions to what's going on. Do you mind if I record this?
Possibly. Who's going to hear it?
It's still up in the air right now. My goal is to get on This American Life, but we'll see.
She says, well, sure, why not? So what do you want to know?
So, I mean, just what do you think? Who do you think did it?
Oh, this is about Paul. I thought you were maybe interviewing comedians for some sort of interview series or something.
Well, I mean, I did come to you first because comedy is an integral part of my podcast.
Do a meddling move with presence.
Oh, that's an 11.
Nice. Yeah. You want to bump that or?
No, I'm good with an 11. I think this is the first role I've ever actually succeeded at. So I'm just gonna like bask in it.
Bask in it, fair enough. She says, well, Paul was Paul could be a difficult character. I think many people in the production probably thought he was challenging at times, but I think anyone with any kind of celebrity or talent can be a bit difficult to work with. So nothing unusual about that. She's sort of like hems and haws for a little bit. She doesn't know why somebody would kill him and so on and so forth. And then she says, I do know that the congenial, collegial relationship that Paul and Jane have on camera is quite a bit stormier off-set, but how could someone as old and frail as Jane Leaf commit a murder?
Oh, I'm sure she couldn't have, but what do you mean about their relationship? Could you go into a little more detail about that?
Well, I suppose there's no harm in it now since the show is probably over at this point, but they could be a bit, it could be small things, Oh, should you really use this much bittersweet chocolate in a particular recipe? Or is it okay to use oil as a moist ingredient for a cake, olive oil that is? Little things like that, but it became more intense. Frankly, I think Jane was jealous because Paul was the star of the show.
Do you think she was jealous enough to do anything rash?
No, of course not. It doesn't make any sense. She's a frail, elderly woman. How could she commit a murder?
We just arrested like a 90-year-old the other week.
And she says, well, I've probably said too much already. So
Okay, I'll let her go. I'm gonna ask her for one joke before we leave, though.
she'll say, knock, knock.
Who's there?
She says, someone else at my trailer, so you better go. So I can come in.
Oh, you're the best.
Indeed. And she shows you out. Good luck in the cake round, and sends you on your
Thanks.
way. Esther, you have the the hound there, right? Trying to get into the trailer. Heath is kind of initially kind of resisting you, but eventually agrees to let you go in. And you hear Sheriff Dalrymple from outside the trailer. He doesn't seem to know about the murder yet, because you can hear Heath saying to him, you can hear him saying to Heath, oh, I just came to check in on one of your contestants, Ruth. She and I are kind of sweet on each other, and just wanted to see how things were going. He doesn't know about the murder yet. He's right outside the trailer, and it could be a problem if he learns about the murder, because then he'll be involved, right? And Heath says, well, everything's okay. I mean, there haven't been any random murders or anything on set. Sheriff Dalrymple says, come again? Esther, what do you do?
Where is the body like positioned in the trailer? Like, if I open the door,
if you open the door, you're in the clear. He's like, it's off to the side a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then I guess I'm just gonna come like bursting out of the trailer, very aggressively. Our last interaction was a touch violent, and I'm just gonna say, Sheriff.
Esther, I forgot you were in this. You were a finalist in the show as well. How are things going with the show, that is?
Well, no one liked my pie, so that was upsetting. But there could be worse things.
He says, yeah, I guess there always could be worse things. Let's have a day move for you to like kind of, are you going to try to like just kind of get him out of here? Is that the goal or what?
Yes. Yeah.
What are you afraid of happening if you fail or lose your nerve?
I am afraid that he will. I don't know. I'm afraid that I'm going to arouse his suspicion, I guess, in some way.
Go ahead and make the roll with composure.
That is an 8.
He says, well, he kind of like reflexively touches his jaw where you punched him. He says, I don't want to be a bother. He looks over to Heath. Would you mind if I watch the next round from outside that little barrier you have set up there? Would that be okay? And Heath says, would that be okay? Sure, why not? Are you going to be dressed like that, like a police official? He says, is there something wrong with that? He says, well, I don't, I don't want it to look like something totally weird or suspicious is taking place on set by having a cop in frame. And he's kind of like getting a little like, what is going on? But he otherwise like says, I'll take off my hat. And is kind of making his way over to the sort of cordoned off area where some onlookers are allowed to be. So you're in the clear for now, but Sheriff Dalrymple is on the scene. Laura, you got Timothy Bouche. And he says, while you're here, can I offer you a biscuit? And he takes a cookie. He gives you the cookie.
Yes, and so you were saying, and I think she's definitely trying to avoid kind of looking at that poster.
Yeah.
And so, can we? I mean, I really would like to talk to you, but I suddenly feel like I'm hungry. I'm not sure if this biscuit. Don't you want to come with me to the contestants' tent, and we could maybe have some food there and continue this conversation there? I'm sorry that I disturbed you here in.
Sure. I could go for a sandwich. And he sets his cookie down, and he'll go with you to go get a sandwich. And I think while you are walking across the little yard area to get over to the sort of craft services, think for a moment what I want to happen here. He's going across, you're both walking across there, and somebody from production walks up to him and whispers something in his ear. He has to really stretch up to get up to his ear. And Timothy says, sure. Yeah, of course. And he says, I'm really sorry, Laura. I have to go talk to Heath about something. Could you, maybe I'll meet you over there in a moment.
Okay. Sure.
And he looks a little like kind of scared or something, a little nervous. And
what's going on?
He says, "Oh, nothing. Just a note from the producer. I have to go talk to him about something. I'll be there in a minute." And he goes and he goes off, just kind of leaving you there. What do you do?
I think there is this connection somehow between what happened before, and she believes in. She doesn't really believe that some things are coincidences. So I think that kind of that poster in the trailer doesn't really leave her. She cannot forget that, and I think she goes back there to the trailer to snoop around now that he's gone.
Very good. Ida, you had a miss as well, didn't you?
Had a 4. Yep.
When you were chatting with Scott Lamb. Indeed. Scott, what was the last thing you asked him?
So I had just asked him, like, what was the deeper story? Because the camera only showed so much of their spat. Like, what really was the problem between him and Paul?
And he says, well, it's a very long, complicated story, and I don't want to bore you with all the details, but suffice to say, I mean, the online rumors are true. Paul and I had something of a casual relationship with each other.
You know, the most deep-seated of anger often comes from a place of love, dare I say?
Yes. Love is not exactly how I would categorize or characterize anything connected to Paul and I. It wasn't that deep. I'm sorry he's dead, of course, but some would say, a lot of people would say, he had it coming. So,
Well, I'm a bit shocked to hear you feel that way after sharing such an intimate bond with him, but I suppose not everything ends well.
says, no, I suppose not. And I'm gonna, for your miss, he doesn't really give you a capital C clue, but for your miss, he is going to, he says, I noticed earlier that your sugar jar was low, and I managed to snag another one for you for the next round of competition. And unbeknownst to Ida, he's given you a jar of salt instead of sugar.
Oh, thank you so much. This is perfect. I appreciate it. I just really went ham with that last one. You know, the reason why that pie came out not so well is because that was my second attempt. The first one was totally flat.
Yes, it was revolting. But I want to make sure you have plenty of sugar for the next round.
Thank you. I appreciate such sportsmanship from a fellow competitor.
You bet.
And she buys that hook, line, and sinker, goes and adds it to her next to, she even like takes her old one, sees that it's like really pretty empty, and just, you know, sets that jar off to the side, replaces it completely with the new jar.
Indeed. I love it. So, Ruth, you've had good luck. You managed to get the the first clue out of was it Sue you were chatting with? Yeah, Sue. She shows you out. What do you do then?
Well, now we got to go find the grieving widow.
Oh yeah, Donna. So, Donna Riviera, you find her with the cameraman Buck, and Donna is.
Do we know Buck? If he's a local?
You might, yeah, maybe. You can say you do if you want to. I'm okay with that. Donna is a bottle blonde. She's wearing all leopard print, just piles of makeup. She is a bit of a celebrity as well, like her deceased husband, having starred in a short-lived reality television program, The Real Scousewives of Liverpool. She's there with Buck, and they're both being very flirtatious with each other, right? Like everybody in Brindlewood Bay, deceased loved ones do not lead to grief automatically. So what do you do?
I'm just gonna, I don't know if we've met or not, but if not, I'll introduce myself.
And she says, she's like, well, hello then. I'm Donna.
Well, I'm Ruth, and you know, I'm sure you've seen me on the show. You know, been here a while, doing through several rounds.
Well, I'm sure you've seen me on television as well.
Right? Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
I loved you on TV. But you know, I just wanted to make sure you were doing okay. Do you mind if I record this conversation?
She's like, oh, not at all. Go ahead, love. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure you were doing okay. I mean, I know how the death of a loved one can be a very hard thing to deal with.
Buck, like, kind of sidles up to her and sort of like speaks into her neck. I'll catch you later. And he like leaves.
I want to interview you too, Buck.
And Buck says, as he walks away, he's like, you know where you can find me? And he makes like a smoking gesture. Right? So she's like, all right, well, what is it then, love?
Well, I just wanted to, you know, see how you were holding up and see what your thoughts
Oh, about
were.
Paul. Yeah. Dreadful.
Yeah. So, I mean, who do you, not to get, not to just go there, but I mean, who do you think would have done it?
She's like, oh, why should I tell you?
Well, because being the one who blows the case open when this airs on This American Life will be amazing for your career. I'll make you the star of the show.
Let me take a look at your conditions. I think you can probably clear some of these. You can clear scared for now. Keep brave face though. She says, Esther, you can clear bruised knee also. That'd be gone by now. And sore neck as well. Ida. Laura, you don't get to clear anything. Do a roll with presence. I think it's presence. Yeah.
7.
7. She's like, yeah, I've got a theory. And then she kind of goes into her leopard print jacket and pulls out a flask. She says, do you partake?
Well, from time to time.
Well, let's go partake, and I'll tell you what I think.
All right, let's get sauced.
And she'll go off with you. We'll come back to that in a minute. So, Esther, you've managed to get Sheriff Dalrymple off the case. What are you doing now?
So, Esther worked in television, much like I, Alicia, work in television. So Esther would know that there must be like a video village or something around here where they would have the dailies and things like that. And she would like to see if she can find it, if it's not obvious, and maybe see if they have any information or caught something on camera.
Very clever. I like it. You can definitely find that place. I think Heath will be there. You'll have to probably convince Heath that you need to look at this stuff. Heath will say, well, the cops are here now, so that's great. I guess I'm not going to be able to keep a lid on this after all.
I think that that's terrible. I'm so sorry. I love this show so much. It's so good. You know what? I think you don't have to worry about it. I mean, the ratings are excellent. The production values are great. I mean, I think you're going to survive this unfortunate blip. But you know what? I don't think I'm going to survive to the next round if I don't figure out what I did wrong in the first round. So I was just wondering if maybe I could look at that footage played back and just see. Maybe I made a mistake in my whipping or something.
Well, I think you're going to have to get past him first to do this. Give me a day move. What are you afraid will happen if you can't convince him of this, or if you lose your nerve right now?
I think I'm afraid. I mean, I guess I'm just, no, that's a terrible, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. I think I'm afraid that I will shoot myself in the foot with Heath, that I'm trying to build this camaraderie, and that he's just going to dismiss me as a little old lady.
Yeah, that's good. Roll with composure, since you're basically lying. You are definitely lying.
9.
He says, well, I can definitely have them pull the tapes, and we can get that figured out. I mean, we have the time now, so sure. I'm afraid I'm going to have to give all your fellow contestants the same opportunity, though. I don't think it would be fair to let you review what you did and not give everybody else a chance to do the same. So if you're okay with everybody else being in here doing the same thing, maybe we can set up set up something for you all, and we can do that, and it'll give you something to do while we figure this out, at least, if nothing else.
Yeah, you know what? I actually think that's a good idea. Maybe just like a couple of us at a time, so it doesn't get too crowded. We don't want to knock over the very expensive equipment.
Okay, well, so who should I bring in here first?
Oh, why not, Ruth or Laura or Ida?
He says, well, what about Melanie and Scott?
Oh, well, I think I saw them busy working on something.
Oh, okay. He's like, and just a heads up, Scott will totally try to sabotage you, just FYI.
Great, thanks.
And, but he's great TV. We love it. We love Scott. We love Scott. I'll go get Ida. Ida, where did we find you last?
Ida had just deposited a big old jar of salt in
right.
place of her sugar canister on her table there in the tent. And I think I think for now she's gotten better context from Scott, so she's not necessarily drilling into that. I think she's probably on her way over to the crime scene when probably she runs into the director.
Yeah, Heath will say, "Oh, Ida, so Esther has requested an opportunity to look back at some of her footage to see maybe if she did something wrong, or if, to kind of review what she did in the last round to maybe help her out in the next round. I said that was okay, especially since we have some time to kill right now, but I want to give everybody a chance to do that. So we're doing it in pairs. We're going to pull the video, the relevant video, and you will get to review it. So if you kind of want to see, kind of review your work before the cake round.
That sounds like a great plan opportunity. Yeah, I definitely made some mistakes last round that I would love to take a closer look at.
Well, come with me now, and we'll get this sorted out. I'm going to give you both 30 minutes, and that's it. I'm going to go get 2 more contestants. It's going to be a whole thing. So come on, and he takes you over there. And so now the 2 of you are in the scene, and Buck has put some tapes in. They've wheeled out a TV on a cart, kind of like in elementary school, and set up a couple of chairs. It's like, so here are the tapes. Do you know how to operate one of these things?
I think Ida turns a little patronizingly. I can operate your machinery, yes.
It's like, okay, well, this is fast forward. This is rewind. If you want to stop because you need to stop for an old lady thing or something, you just press pause right here.
Yeah, when my very weak and small bladder expires, I'll pause it so I can go relieve myself. Thank you.
That's way more detail than I needed, but I'm glad you got a handle on it, on the video and your very small bladder. Have fun. He leaves you to it. So just have the scene with the 2 of you.
Yeah, so I think I'm just gonna inch my chair a little closer to Ida, because even though Buck is left, it's a busy set, right? And so I just want to keep my voice low, and I'm like, I just thought that we could review the tapes and maybe we'd see something. I'm so glad you're here. Now there's more tapes for us to watch.
She, with a big grin, I think that's a lovely idea. As they were bringing me over here, I think I had an inkling of what you were planning. This is a great thing you've scored here.
Oh, thank you. I had to lie, but it's fine.
It's for a good cause. There's been a murder.
Yeah, and then I guess just hit that button on the tapes and see if we can catch something happening.
Yeah, I love it. Make a meddling move with reason, Esther, for now, then maybe I'll give Ida a roll later.
Oh, that's an 11.
Ooh.
I think I want to bump it.
Okay, so mark a crown, presumably queen.
Yes. Yeah.
And we'll come back to that in a moment. So let's pick up with, whose turn is it? Laura or Ruth? I don't remember, but we'll go with Laura for now. So Laura, you're going back to the trailer, Timothy Bush's trailer. You have the run of the place because Timothy's eating sandwiches at craft services now. Or no,
So I'm
he got
wondering-
pulled off to a meeting with someone. That's
Yes.
right.
So I'm wondering whether it might be actually the case that the thing is that the trailer is closed, but that Laura might be able, with all her yoga training and so on, to medal using vitality by actually going in through like the roof, like a small window in the roof, in a daring physical feat.
Because maybe the door is locked or something.
Yes, exactly.
I'm okay with you just doing that. I don't need a roll or anything. I think it's kind of amusing to see you climbing up the trailer though, to get in. Well,
I think, yeah, the question is just whether if we use this as the Cold Seavers move, then and as a meddling move, all in all, then that would be a 12 plus. So
yeah, I'm kind of into it.
wondering-
Yeah, I'm into it. You can take, yeah, I like Colt Seavers here as a meddling move. I'll take it. It's good. So you'll get a void clue plus a regular clue, but just give me the scene.
So I think, I mean, Laura is still quite unnerved and still looking over her shoulder, but she's somehow convinced now that, connected with what happened before, that this guy has something to do with it here, because who would have a poster of a black dog with red eyes in their trailer and so on. So she goes there and she rattles the door a bit, it's closed, and then she kind of hesitates for a moment and then said, no, I have to get in there. And she climbs up somehow in a quick motion where you kind of didn't expect it, that she would be able to be that quick up on the roof. And then I think she really just kind of contorts her body a bit to slide in through this window. And then we see her standing in the there. And I think the first thing she does is actually kind of take this poster down. So I'm not sure if there's maybe something on the back of it or behind that.
No, I like it. Yeah, that's good. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back and we'll figure out what we find. Let's pick up with Ruth and Donna. Ruth, I'm going to give you the condition tipsy because I think you and Donna have been kind of going at it pretty well here with the booze.
I saw that coming, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, question: is she rich and famous enough for the Frank Columbo move to trigger on her?
Yeah, I'm into it. Yeah, of course.
Great.
So read that move to us.
So, something about you causes the elite of society to not take you too seriously. Once per session, when you do the meddling move in a place occupied by the rich and famous, you find an additional clue, even on a miss, and an additional void clue on a 12 plus.
Oh, nice. And you got a mixed result, right? So you get 2
I did,
clues out of
yes.
this. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's reality TV royalty in Great Britain, so that counts. I love it. So yeah, she's kind of just like giving you a lot of information. Why is she vulnerable to you? Like, what's the Frank Columbo-ness here?
I mean, I think I'm fairly ridiculous. I'm a drunk old lady with like a tiny tape recorder just sticking it in her face. Like, okay. I think I'm fairly disarming.
Okay, I love it. She's just like kind of giving you like lots of information here. And good. She says, well, the thing about this whole production is everyone loves the Jolly Good Baking Show. It's the most popular television program in the world, and everyone is so nice and so they help each other, and it makes you feel good, and it has this reputation. But behind the scenes, it is cutthroat. It is a group of incredibly selfish, vicious people. And I admit, Paul was one of those people. I mean, he was going to leave the program. He threatened to leave. He was the star of the show. he was going to leave and take his name with him and create a competing program, and no one here was happy about that. Least of all Jane Leaf, who in recent years has her pay packet hasn't kept up with Paul's, and I think she feels like the second banana on the judging table. And I think she just thought that Paul was being very, very selfish and not loyal to the brand. Is that enough for murder? I don't know. But, and then the thing I think is interesting here, she keeps getting text messages during the conversation. And at one point, she just leaves her phone kind of casually, like nearby, so you can just grab it and look at it. And they are very, very filthy text messages from Buck, the cameraman. That's your first clue.
I'm going to have to tell his mother.
Indeed, yeah. So, clue, Buck and Donna are having a fling. Dirty text messages. What was the other clue, the first clue that we found?
So Sue said that Jane and Paul
Yeah.
had an argument.
Indeed. And Donna's kind of basically confirming that, right? Like that feels like a settled issue. I'm going to give you one more clue. So you saw the text messages. That's clue one. And the next thing you see, or the next thing you're aware of, give me a moment. She says, well, and then there's Sue Mellon. Sue Mellon recently asked us for money. Apparently, she's got a bit of a gambling problem, and her comedy career is in the tank. And, well, me and Paul were doing all right, so she hit us up for money. I wanted to help her, of course, but Paul said no. So that is your next clue.
My podcast is going to be so freaking good. Oh my God. It has everything.
And we'll go back to the scene with Esther and Ida watching videos. So Esther and Ida, one of the videos you catch is Buck having dropped the camera to his side, thinking it wasn't recording, but it actually was recording. And it catches a conversation with Heath on his cell phone. He's talking about a cast member, either one of the presenters or one of the judges. It's unclear. But you can hear him saying, but that's an absolutely ridiculous demand. Will you tell their agent we're not going to do it? Like, that's outrageous. Yes, I know we're the most popular beloved program in the world. That doesn't matter. Like, it's too much. It's too much money. It doesn't even make any sense. It's just a ridiculous demand. And I am not rewriting contracts to stipulate that. It's just not happening. It's not happening. That's your clue. Someone was making an unreasonable contract demand. We shall note that. Here's the other thing you see in the videos. At one point, Buck is capturing an interview with one of the contestants, Melanie, say, while she's in the middle of baking. You know, that's the thing they were like, while they're in the middle of trying to bake, the cameraman's like trying to get some audio from them, trying to get them to say something important. And so Melanie's like trying to stay focused on their work, but she's also trying to, like, you know, answer the questions been posed to her, you know, so, you know, teaching people how to bake, you know, like, you know, we want to do this, you want to do that, and so on and so forth. And no one seems to notice it. Buck doesn't notice it anyway. But somewhat like in one part of the frame, you can see the top of the tent. And so it's like a big white tent, right? And there's something crawling on the tent. It's the size of a man. It's crawling on all fours. And you can just see its shadow, like crawling on top of the tent and then out of frame. That's your void clue.
I feel like when I see it, I like reach out and grab Ida's hand, like, you know, shocked.
What is that?
It's kind of the there and you miss it kind of thing. I mean, it's like just real briefly, like.
Oh, must have just been a small colony of squirrels.
Perhaps. Meanwhile, Laura, you have managed to rappel into Bush's trailer. You take off that poster, and I like the idea of there being something behind the poster. Let's talk about that. Behind the poster, there's a little nook, and in the nook is a stack of letters. Assuming you go through them, they are love letters from the British Prime Minister. Are they to Timothy? Unclear. But they are signed by the British Prime Minister, and they're like effusive, very like flowery, romantic love letters. I shall make a note of that. What do you do with them?
I think Laura puts them back, but takes one of them and puts it in her pants pocket or something. And I think she then kind of, I mean, that's weird, but okay, that someone would hide that behind a poster of a black dog. But I think, yeah, she goes, yeah, I think she continues kind of searching through Timothy's stuff.
You hear a conversation just outside the trailer. There's a little window. You hear two people talking. And the conversation, the voices are kind of muffled, even more so than they would be because you're inside a building. And it's just a very like casual, common conversation. It's something like, have you had a chance to go check out the boardwalk yet? No, I haven't seen it yet. It seems really nice though. I mean, just regular tourist trap kind of stuff. But well, if we ever finish filming this episode, we should definitely go down there and take a look. Yeah, I'd like that a lot. This conversation is going on. What do you do?
I think Laura kind of tries to look out of the window to see whether she can identify who is talking there, but without them seeing that there's someone in the trailer.
If you look outside the window, you'll see these two people. They just look like production people, but they're wearing smooth, featureless wooden masks over their face as they talk to each other. And you'll see a few other people walking around as well. They're all wearing these wooden masks. And then at a certain point, they all stop and look directly at you in the window. How do you feel right now, Laura? You're muted.
I think Laura kind of drops to the floor, her heart beating, and I think she kind of moves, like if there's some bed or something that she can move under, I think that's where she moves under for now, and kind of breathing heavily.
I'm going to give you the condition horrified. It replaces unnerved, and you have to mark the crown because you don't have space. So.
Mm-hmm.
And right about that time, it's probably dusk at this point, and you hear Heath saying, "Okay, contestants, we've got a plan. We're gonna figure it out. We're pressing forward. We lost Timothy, so it's just gonna be Sue and Jane in the tent, but we are pressing forward with the cake round. So if everyone could please head back to the tent, we're gonna do the cake round. We're all very excited to see your fabulous confections. So let's go now." And everyone's kind of like moving, towards the thing. I don't think the people, Melanie and Scott, weren't interested in watching the videos back. In any case, it doesn't seem to matter because it's time to have the cake round. Laura, are you going to the cake round? Are you staying in the trailer?
I think Laura's coming.
Okay.
Slowly.
So when you all get there, as noted, obviously Paul's not there, but also Timothy Bouche is not there. It's just Jane and Sue as the other on-screen people, and then of course Buck is the principal cameraman. Heath is on the periphery. Sheriff Dalrymple's on the periphery, and if you look up, you don't see anything crawling on the tent right now. So let's have this round. Let's just have a little bit of round robin of like just kind of what it looks like during this cake round. It's you have 3 hours to make your cake. Just give us a little bit of a cake making fiction here. Whoever wants to go first.
So Ruth is just covered in flour. She's having trouble operating her mixer. Like the flour just keeps exploding out of her mixer, and she's just like coated.
I love it.
I think like they're a third of the way through their time, and originally, because she has a pretty ambitious decorating planned for her cake, Ida had been saving a lot of that time in the competition for the decoration, and all of her cakes are just totally wrong. And she's so confused, and she tries a couple bites of them and they taste way too salty. And she finally at this point checks her sugar jar and makes the realization. And I think for the camera, she just plays it as like, whoops, looks like I just swapped the sugar for salt. Oh, it happens. And she starts over and starts working on her cakes again.
Sue says, "Don't worry, love, it happens once every season." And Laura, how does your cake baking go?
I think she's kind of not concentrating really on the baking. Still kind of looking around now, not just this black dog, but also people in wooden masks. Is she imagining it all? It's unclear. And so I think she kind of separates out the different ingredients that she will use, but somehow it's kind of like her cake baking kind of also mirrors her kind of fractured state. So it's kind of, she's doing kind of just fractures of the recipe, and then she stops for a few minutes and then she continues, but it's all not really coming together.
Jane will say, "Are you quite all right, dear? You seem to be a little distracted."
I seem to have difficulty recalling the recipe that I had prepared. It's been a while. I haven't baked this cake for a while. Somehow.
She takes your hand and says, "Dear, don't worry. It's just a cake. If you do a good job, then bravo. If you do a poor job, it's no worries at all. It's not like a gaping black void is going to open up behind you and swallow you up."
Yes, I hope you're right.
Esther, how's your cake baking going?
I think that Esther's very aware of being on camera. So like everything, like it's a clean workspace, it's a clean apron, like everything is like clean and tidy. But she has, I think at some point, like wiped her forehead and left like one smear of batter or frosting or something there. But I think she's also the contestant who's helping other people. She went with a simpler cake, and so like she can see that like everyone else is maybe struggling a little bit, so she's kind of like rushing from station to station, just like, you know, helping Ruth tidy, like helping Ida, you know, now that the sugar situation, like just trying to help Laura, who's really struggling by the sounds of it. So just like that, it's that helper contestant, you know, and then occasionally she just like goes back, checks her own cake, it's fine.
I love it. We see Scott's giving a little interview to the cameraman while he bakes, and he says, "Well, of course, my competition today is Melanie. I mean, her family, they're a family of bakers, and don't let her frazzled state confuse you. She's a shark. She knows exactly what she's doing around a mixer. I'd be keeping my eyes on her. No offense to to some of our elderly contestants here, but I think this one's down to me and Melanie." He wildly stirs a spoon, right? And Melanie, her hair is a frazzled mess. And she's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. It's just cake. Why would you cry over a cake? But here I am, I'm crying over a cake." And she's crying over a cake, but like her cake is fine. There's like nothing wrong with her cake. like everything is like going A-okay. Her cake is going to be amazing. And so, cake judging. So you all will have found a picture on the internet to be the cake that your Maven baked. If there's a way of sharing it on the video, that would be awesome. I don't know if there is, but I want to see them at least with links. So who wants to share their cake?
Okay, so I need to give the backstory for this cake, I think, like
Okay.
the personal backstory for this cake, because I owe you a flashback from a previous
okay, good.
session.
Let's have
And
it.
so,
okay.
This cake, let me see if I can give you a picture of what I'm aiming for. Oh no, it won't let me screen share, but here is the link. So this is the drawing, like the sketch looks like this of like what I'm going to make. And so I think there's like a sort of teary interview with Ruth, who's like slurring her words just slightly, talking about how like peacocks really, so the cake itself is a peacock on top with like the tail feathers flowing down, right? And so Ruth explains how like when she first got her doctorate, like her first real field work was in India. And at that time, like her mother was sick. And so she had to decide whether to stay home with her mom or like take this position in the field in India. And she went to India. And so now every time she sees a peacock, it reminds her of her mother. And this is the cake she makes.
Oh, bless her. I wish people in the video could see. Can I screen share? Is that a thing I can do? I don't even know.
Probably it said the host had disallowed it for me.
Oh, okay, I can probably change that. Hold on. Share screen. I don't know how to let other people share.
You could also put it as your virtual background.
Oh yeah, no, I think I can. It says.
I mean, all of each of the players.
Yeah. Oh, that's true too. Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I should have figured this out first, but video. I just don't know how to do it. It's not super obvious.
I think you have to make someone a co-host, then they can share.
Okay,
That's the
okay.
easiest way.
I would
just
just
do the
share it
background
I would
thing
just share it myself.
Yeah,
but I don't know
as the
how.
background.
Okay.
there we
go.
Well, it's kind of cutting it out, but there is the sketch.
That's the
something
cake you were
like that.
trying to make, right?
Right. And so this is the end result of my drunken cake attempt is that thing.
I like your peacock cake, even though it's kind of a derpy peacock, but I love it.
I ran out of time to make all the cupcakes that were supposed to be its tail, so I just slapped them on the table behind it.
Very good. I love it. I love it. Who wants to share their cake next?
I already threw up my background, so I'll talk about Ida's. So originally, Ida was going to do 6 small cakes of each of the different, like, Andy Warhol Campbell soup can designs. But when she had to remake, a third of the way into the competition, she went for one larger one, and she picked her favorite. And like when she comes up to present it, she's like, "Oh, my late husband Hugh, he loved Andy Warhol. He had a couple of reproductions in our house that I have since put away. I'm not actually that big of a fan, but I thought in honor in his memory, I would make this today for you. It is, however, my favorite cake recipe. It's a lemon ginger with a little bit of a dark chocolate ganache, sandwiching the layers. It's to die for, not literally." And she presents her cake. It's that.
Fabulous. I love it. Very, very good. Good. Who wants to go next, Laura or Esther?
Go ahead.
Esther.
I will go next, I guess, since my cake is also up. So I went clean and simple, just like it turns out Esther is. I'm with my geode.
The geode cake, yeah.
Really wanted to go for those clean lines. But Esther loves chocolate, so it unexpectedly is a chocolate cake on the inside. And I personally think that she nailed it. Like, it's just, the fondant is rolled out like perfectly smooth. And she got
Jane will say, did you make your own fondant, or is that store-bought?
Oh, it's homemade, of course.
Very good. Laura, show us your cake.
So I think Laura, so this is kind of like an Indian cake again, but she messes it up, and that also reminds her, like, she's trying her best to do this, but because she is just not there with her head, she puts in too much sugar, and then the cream doesn't really want to stay up, and it's too liquidy. And this reminds her of this time when Laura doesn't have her own kids, but with this man that she was dating for a long time, this diplomat in India, he had kids, and she once made this cake. The last time she ruined it, or basically it was a big problem that ended up in a fight between her and this man, is that she made this cake with a lot of rum in it, and then the kids ate half of it, and they got really drunk, and it was such a big scene, and she really felt like, she's not the mother of these kids, but also this is really like she also wouldn't be a good mother. That's what she felt in that moment. I'm gonna mark the crown of the queen for before.
Fabulous. And Melanie's cake is flawless. It is a multi-tiered, Black Forest cake with cherries and stuff on top, and chocolate shards made to look like a sort of abstract German forest, right? And it's delicious. The cream is just right. It's such a moist cake, Jane says. I think you've really cracked it, she says. And Melanie is delighted. Scott's cake doesn't go as well as he hoped. He was going for a marbling effect, right? Like pouring a sort of marbling effect on top of it, but it all just got a little muddy, and it just looks like a brown, muddy mess. But it tastes good. And Jane says, Scott, dear, your cake has a perfectly adequate taste. It's just that the look is a bit informal. And that is the death knell for Scott in this competition. And he looks furious. And the judging is taking place. Esther, remind me how you did on your pie round. Did you get a triumph or a disappointing?
I got a disappointing. Nobody liked my meat pie for some reason in the non-meat round.
Ida got a disappointing on pie too, but did pretty good job on the cake. Ruth, you got positive on, well, your cake is a bit...
The cake is questionable, but it does have a really good sob story.
It does have a good story to it. Yeah, that's important. That's very important. Laura didn't do her best work on the cake round, but did a really great job on the pie round. And so there's some deliberation, and Sue is ready to announce the winner. And there's a lot of like tense, everyone's holding hands like you do, so you look like you all support each other a lot. And the winner of the Jolly Good Baking Show Brindlewood Bay edition is, ridiculously long pause, Melanie. And Melanie's like, and there's all like, yay, Melanie. And Melanie's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could do it. She totally knew she could do it. And yeah, and that's what's going on. There's still a murder to be dealt with. And I think we're going to wrap a little early today, and we shall sort out the murder next time we meet. But for now, do we have any unresolved crowns that we need to do?
I have one.
Okay, go ahead and do it.
So I marked I gotta get off my cake picture here. I marked the crown of the queen, a scene in the present day showing a burgeoning romance. So cut to maybe like a week ago in the kitchen. It's messy in that like rom-com style. And I feel like Ida and Esther are there, and we're like working on our bakes for the show, right? And we're like taste testing and like wiping little like flour off each other. It's like cute. Just like a little hint.
I love it. Good. Were there any other crowns that we have to do? Is that everyone? Okay. Let's do end of session questions then. Let's slide over to, everyone's getting the first one. So you, because you did solve a mystery this session, so that's sorted. Esther, did you secretly undermine the authority of a local official? Yes, you definitely did that. Did you share a memory of a late family member?
No, I didn't do that. But I also now have my Milton Hardcastle for extrajudicial justice.
Yes. How did that come through?
I punched the sheriff in the face.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. You could definitely take your XP for that. Awesome. Let's go to Ruth. did you secretly undermine the authority of a local official?
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think, not quite so much this one. Did you behave like a woman half your age?
Hell yeah, I got drunk with the real housewife of Liverpool.
That's right, you sure did. Take your XP for that. Ida, did you secretly undermine the authority of a local official?
Not particularly this round, I don't think.
Did you share a memory of a late family member?
I did talk about my husband having really loved Andy Warhol
That's
and
right.
Honoring his memory with the cake. So.
I love it. Take your XP. And Laura, did you behave like a woman half your age? I mentioned climbing through the trailer. Probably
I guess so.
satisfies that. Did you share a memory of a late family member?
Well, maybe because that the man that she was with, he died, and they had this fight because of the cake that she put too much alcohol in.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. No, it's great. So that's that sorted. Let's do stars and wishes. Stars are things you enjoyed. Wishes are things you hope to see next time. Whoever wants to go first, take it away.
So I don't know about my wishes, but my stars, like I 100% loved the resolution of the previous mystery, and like going into it having no idea, and like, I mean, all the clues hung together. I was super impressed with our actual resolution to the mystery.
Yeah, it was really good. I agree.
Yeah, I was not expecting us to pull a Miss Carfax there at all. Like I don't know who was like my name in the hat going into it, but it certainly wasn't Miss Carfax. So that was really cool to see that come out through our conversation.
Yeah, it was for me. I mean, I know my mystery system works, but I love seeing it still. Like I love seeing it all come together, you know, like just this sort of this one hung together really, really well, and the conversation was great. And it actually like it felt really like it kind of enriched the overall story too. Like it wasn't just, okay, Mrs. Carfax did it, so haul her away. Like there's more going on, right? Like it felt like really tied into everything. So it was great. It's a good start for me too.
I loved Laura breaking into the trailer. I just loved the image of her doing that. I love that you've picked up that Maven move.
Yeah, I would give a star to Laura for just I like this sort of like Adrian, I like how you're leaning into like the trauma of Laura, right? Like Laura, it's interesting because I feel like Laura almost feels like a Dario Argento heroine or something, right? Like there's a like there are like intense occult shit going on, and like you're aware of it, and you are being like psychologically attacked by these evil forces, right? Like the others are doing their cake baking and stuff, but like you're like there, like kind of in this sort of having the horror moment, which I think is really great. So I'm just loving that dynamic with Laura. I think it's really great.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's kind of as a player, I was wondering whether like where to find in a way a cozy scene for her to get out of some of these conditions. But in the end, I think fictionally it makes actually more sense that she just cannot catch a break. So so that it just gets worse and worse, and that she tries, you know, I mean, they went to this baking show to kind of do something completely different, and then again she gets pushed back into this kind of horror thing, or she talks to this guy because maybe it's something else, you know, away from Brindlewood Bay, and then the first thing she sees when she gets into the trailer is this kind of poster of a black dog. So I think that's kind of representing where she is right now. Yeah, the other funny thing like that, so I like that. I like the other, I think it's kind of interesting because for me at the moment, it seems like Laura from the beginning on, which was just basically just random in the beginning, that she went off to do her own thing. And now I think she's kind of separate in a way from the group. And I think, I mean, that's fine. You know, it somehow, it makes sense fictionally. So I think at the moment that's fine. I wonder where that will go in the next couple of sessions. But I'm enjoying the interactions between the others as well. And yeah, so I like that. yeah, I like the pie and cake baking. That's a lot of fun. I've run that mystery a month ago or so as well, and my group also enjoyed that. So that's an interesting kind of additional little thing in that mystery. I like it.
I would give a start. Oh, go ahead, Alicia.
I was gonna say, I really like, in a way, how we've keep drilling down to these more and more contained stories. That's been interesting. So like starting with like Dad Overboard and like doing the town, and then we were kind of in the house, and now we're like, maybe it's not as contained as the house, but in time we're contained, right? Like it's a really quite tight. And so this, it's a bit of like a claustrophobic feeling that I think is really interesting.
The interesting thing about GBBO, whenever I've run it, is I didn't write it this way, but this is the way it always turns out, which is this mystery, probably more than any of the other, at least the first party ones, it probably is the most like restrictive in terms of it doesn't give you a chance to do cozy moves. So you're kind of like stuck, like not able to do the cozy move until it's kind of over, right? Now that's not like to say it's impossible. I'm open to, like any idea, of course, but it just tends to be the case that like Great Brindlewood Bake-off, the Great Brindlewood Bay Bake-off is like you're right, it's a confined mystery, right? It's like, okay, this is the situation, and you kind of don't get to go back to your little lives for a minute, right? Like, whereas in the other ones, you can kind of move around and do that a little bit, so it's interesting that way for sure. I was gonna give a star to, I love the way that different story elements are resurfacing from like things from previous mysteries, how they're kind of resurfacing in this one, which I think is pretty cool. That we know about the history, for example, between Esther and Sheriff Dalrymple, and that sort of just having Sheriff Dalrymple be there as a sort of like menacing figure, like feels right for the moment. And I really enjoyed how Esther sort of like handled that scene. I thought that was great. I loved the video scene. That was really, really fun way of doing some cool stuff. That I hadn't really thought of myself, but it was a cool idea. So I kind of really enjoyed that a lot as well. The cakes were great. My favorite was probably Ida's cake, my personal favorite. I thought Ida's cake was pretty terrific. And the story that went with it as well. So yeah, there was a lot to like in this session. It was just a really, really good, everyone just really kind of nailed it. And the characters are so well developed at this point. We're just learning so much about them and seeing them and how they operate. The ongoing podcast thing is super hilarious and enjoyable. So yeah, there's just a lot to like about the characterizations.
I gotta throw out a star to Dan for carrying forward the podcasting thing with Ruth. I love that. That's so clever.
Well, I also like that she fundamentally misunderstands podcasts, which I think is hilarious. Like she doesn't like quite understand them, which I think is really great. So
I would love to listen to what she finally produces, like I'd be so curious in world to see what she does. I also want to do a star for Alicia with Esther, and like I like how we're doing this sort of slow burn for Ida and Esther, bringing in little things here and there, them siding up a little closer to each other, to talk softly, but also to sit next to each other while checking out the video and like working and prepping the cake stuff together. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, that was good. Star for that too for me. Any wishes or any other stars?
So one of the things that I thought at the beginning of the session, and now also because I think of the structure of that mystery, we didn't really get so much around to it, but somehow we've very much took a dark turn as far as the authorities and the police goes. In this Brindlewood Bay, which I mean, sometimes, especially with Sheriff Dalrymple, there's kind of this comedic quality to the police, right? Like they're kind of helpless and so on. Here now it's this dark, like they are corrupt and murderers and so on. And I feel that would be because we're going so dark anyway with the occult, and because that's not the way I normally envision the police in the setting of Brindlewood Bay. I wonder whether that would be actually quite interesting to go deeper into that kind of corrupt police like in our Brindlewood Bay. So I think that would be an interesting thing to explore. And the other thing that I put in the chat already, which we'll see whether that still has a place now because the show is kind of almost over. But I think that would be, of course, a nice place to use the contact phone number of a B-list celebrity to kind of have a replacement for Paul on the show. So that would be fun. We'll see.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. Wishes for me, I'm actually super curious if the mystery is going to roll over into another day, because like it could be that like you all just go home or you do a little more like investigating outside of the set, because we do know a few things that are happening off set. Like we know that Scott lives in town, right? Like that's an angle that you could pursue. Presumably the rest of the cast and crew they're staying somewhere in town, right? So like I think there are things you can do outside offset to like sort of continue the investigation, but I'm curious if it'll roll over into a new day and kind of what that looks like since there's no more filming going on, because presumably once the word of the murder gets out, they're not going to just let the production leave, right? They're going to make them stay and kind of, so it might come down to like how many clues you all have and where you want to take it, but I'll just be curious to see how that plays out. So.
I think for me, for wishes, I would love to see it go into a day 2, story-wise, just because I know we just talked about it like sort of being good in its claustrophobicness and keeping you there present in it. But I actually think that, especially since we didn't really get to any cozy stuff, there's like one scene with the previous mystery that it would be nice for us to have like a little break, be able to spend some cozy time in the story and then come back to this mystery. And also that brings more opportunity for the police to get more involved, because presumably they would know by that point. And so we can dig in more to subverting Sheriff Dalrymple and the other constabulary and stuff. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. Any other stars or wishes? Okie doke. Well, thank you all so much. I'm going to stop the recording now.